I want to bring in and talk about one of the most disturbing things in a weekend with nothing but news and much of it disturbing. The most disturbing of it all happened in Brazil with our great ally, President Bolsonaro, arrested again, facing a 27-year prison sentence. He's preparing to go to, arrested again by this out-of-control judge. Eduardo Bolsonaro joins us. Eduardo, can you please tell us what's happening to your father right now? We're going to get into what we have to do as the United States and particularly the MAGA movement. Your father's revered as the Trump of the tropics. What exactly is going on, sir?
So he was convicted for 27 years in jail because fake coup d'etat that we call the Disney World coup d'etat, because in that moment, January 8th of 2023, is the day that they say that it was supposed to happen, the coup d'etat. It was the same thing that we had here in January 6th in the United States. At that time, my father, he was in Orlando. That's why we say it's the Disney World coup d'etat. But despite the reality, they convicted him to 27 years in jail. But what happened is not the beginning of the execution of the sentence. Alexandre de Moraes, the crazy justice, he sent my father in preventive arrest now to jail because he said that he was thinking in runaway. But the thing is, Jair Bolsonaro is now in house arrest with 24 hours per day cops around his house, and even with the right to get into his backyard or in places around the house, you know, the pool area and some other areas of the house. And you have cameras looking to whatever he's doing. Now just came up one of the news in Brazil, a big one, showing drone image from a media in Brazil, from Globo, showing his house, inside of his house. So there is no privacy. Then I ask you, how can a 71 years old man with the health in really bad conditions, he just had a skin cancer, how can he run away in such place like that? So what Alexandre de Moraes wants, he wants to kill Jair Bolsonaro in jail. This is his goal. Why, Steve? Because they're bringing a lot of pressure to my father to his support other candidates to run for president. Any candidate from the center supported by our Supreme Court. As my father bravely is saying, no, I will not support anyone. I do believe that I can get out from jail, approving the amnesty bill in the Congress. I will not support anyone. So he's standing firm and bravely with this position. So Alexandre de Moraes is sending him to jail to make sure that he is going to serve as many years as possible, trying to kill him inside of the jail. That's the point. And only to finish with this first question, Alexandre de Moraes killed other men in jail. His name is Clezão. Clezão, he was in the pre-similarity situation of my father, you know, with a health that was not that good. His lawyers asked for house arrest. Even the Attorney General at that time asked to send this patriot that was arrested on January 8th to his house. Anyway, Alexandre de Moraes just ignored everything. And then, after a couple of months, this man, Clezão, he was dead. So Moraes tested this formula. He wants to repeat this case with Jair Bolsonaro.
No, he want to get him in prison as soon as possible, make sure he can't run again. I think it's in 26, and have him assassinated in prison. Eduardo, can you just hang on one second? I got a couple other questions. Okay. Eduardo Bolsonaro, just for the audience, let's do a quick reset. When the election in Brazil was stolen as badly as the election for President Trump was stolen in 2020, with Bolsonaro, he was in Orlando, Florida at the time. The people down there just had enough of it, of having a Marxist with very little support and a partner of the Chinese Communist Party, Lula, who's been a total disaster, to essentially steal the office with the Supreme Court justice in that cabal. So they rightfully did what free people can do. They protested about it. What they've turned that into is what they turned it into President Trump. Now, thank God you had Boris Epstein and Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee and a great team in the War and Posse and other supporters of President Trump. When the Republican Party abandoned him and Fox News and the Murdochs abandoned him in those dark years of 21, 22, and 23, people stood up. Now, thank God President Trump came back and won the presidency. and the greatest political comeback in history. It's the reason he's not in prison for over 100 years, to be assassinated in that prison. This is exactly what's happened. The same playbook they're running on Bolsonaro. They sentenced one of the best men and greatest leaders in the world, best men in the world and greatest leaders in the world, to 27 years in prison, folks, for being in Orlando, Florida, when you had this civil protest in Brazil about a stolen election. And he's 70 years old, so he's going to die in prison of natural causes, but they wanted to make sure that there's no way he can get amnesty and get out and run in 26 because he would defeat Lula. They understand that. That is why they have gone out of their way now to trump up these other charges and get him into prison sooner to be assassinated. Is that essentially the case that is before us right now, Eduardo?
Sure, yes, Ben. And even the Supreme Court is so comfortable that they do not hide anymore, that they say we are not going to commit the same mistake that the Americans did, which means they will not allow Jair Bolsonaro to run in the next year election. We will have election for president and Congress in October of next year. So what they did is they speed it up as much as possible to convict Jair Bolsonaro. So there is no connection in their reality. There is nothing connecting my father with January 8 things that happened, and even it's not a coup d'état. Like the narrative of the establishment, they're trying to make us believe that a protest when Bolsonaro was no longer the president and before leave the presidency chair, Bolsonaro appointed the commander of the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force of Brazil, the one appointed by Lula. So with all of that, he sent a little bit more than 1,000 people to the field in a Sunday of January, reminding that January in Brazil is vacation, to do a coup d'etat when no one was there. It's weird. And when we try to have access to the cameras of the local where this protest happened, the Lula government, they just refused. His justice minister, he basically, I don't know what he did, probably deleted all the images. Why? Because with the cameras, we could prove that there was a bunch of people infiltrated there. I'm sure that if you are American, you are probably having a deja vu about your January 6th thing. But this is the excuse that Moraes and the Supreme Court is using to get Bolsonaro out of the way in the politics. And for sure, they're also waiting an opportunity to come after Trump and Trump administration. Maybe now, as Trump is the sitting president, you can think, oh, this Brazilian guy is crazy. But I'll tell you, Elon Musk is under investigation in Brazil. Moraes put Elon Musk in investigation in Brazil. Moraes detained Jason Miller after the CPAC Brazil in 2021, an American citizen. Moraes issued arrest warrant against an American citizen, because she was tweeting things that Moraes didn't like here in U.S. soil. Yeah. So he has no limits. Now, imagine what this man could do together with a radical left government in the United States, with a radical left administration. So they're only waiting to the possibility to do that. I usually say, finishing with this question, Steve, is that it's the same virus that you have in the United States, in Brazil, and some other places in the world. The difference is that in Brazil, we have less antibodies. That's why Trump, for maybe because days or weeks didn't go to jail, and thanks God now he's the president of the United States and changing a lot of things, even supporting us there in Brazil, supporting the freedom cause. But if Trump do not make a successor, if you start losing the midterms next year, things will get really, really bad. And I'll tell you, you Americans, you have nowhere to run away. And it will be very painful, a lot of sacrifice if this scenario arrives.
What Eduardo's warning to us is very succinct. These are radicals. You see this in New York City. You see it with the Muslim Brotherhood down in Texas. You see what's going on. They win the midterms, everything changes. And so this is why and they're working together. What is your call to action right now for the American people, Eduardo, in regards to your father?
The first thing is Alexandre de Moraes is not acting alone. So I think it would be very good if Trump administration start to evaluate to also bring Global Magnitsky Act sanction other people around Moraes. For example, the Attorney General, Paulo Gonet. I think it would be a very good start. And also to enforce the Magnitsky Act against Alexandre de Moraes, because what the Brazilian press is saying is that the life of Moraes didn't change that much. So it would be a good idea to enforce, the Brazilian banks, the financial system, to make sure that they are accomplishing with the law, with the American law, because other way they could be shut down from the U.S. system. I mean, if you do not follow the American law, you cannot access the American market. I think these two things would be the best things to do right now. And for everybody, speaks about the Bolsonaro case, is also speaks about the future of Trump, the future of the Trump secretary like Rubio, Bessent, and some others, but also your future. Because I'll tell you, in Brazil, they're not coming only after us, they're also coming after our supporters, like common people. Because what these people want, as the history show us, they want to show themselves very, very bad persons. So they would intimidate everybody to do not even post one thing against them. That's how they control a big country like in Brazil. So this is a warning for you. And speaking as much as possible about the Bolsonaro case, I think we create the conscience and let the Trump administration and some other countries more comfortable to sanction Moraes and have some other attitudes.
Yeah. Eduardo, I'll contact you after the show. A lot of people are working this over the weekend, as you can imagine. You're 100% correct. I warned when I went to Mark Meadows' CPI, the great CPI kind of umbrella organization for the MAGA movement, and gave that speech a couple weeks ago that got like 10 million views, because I warned people in the audience. I said, if the Democrats win, myself included, and many people in this audience are going to go to prison. Not that you've done anything wrong. You've just fought for the freedom and liberty in your country. But it's the same thing in Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is a patriot. 27 years in prison, folks. Remember this, at the age of 70 years old. 27 years in prison for being in Orlando, Florida, when they had a protest down in Brazil. And now they're actually come up with other charges to get him in prison right away because they're too afraid that they're going to get amnesty by the Congress and he can run in 26 because Lula knows he can't win. You can see the polling. Eduardo, what's your social media? We're going to be all over this one, obviously. Where do people go to find out more about you in the righteous cause of the Bolsonaros in Brazil, sir?
Thank you for the opportunity, Steve. My social media in general is Bolsonaro, like my last name, SP. On X, I'm posting a lot in English, but also as well as in Getter and Truth Social. So Bolsonaro SP is where you're going to meet me. Only to finish, Steve, and enjoying the opportunity. In the decision of Moraes that just arrested my father, one point that he wrote is that the house of Jair Bolsonaro is too close of the American embassy. It's about 9 miles from the U.S. embassy there in Brazil. So this is one of the things that he put on the paper that he wrote to justify the arrestment of Jair Bolsonaro. So it shows perfectly that he does not has an excuse to arrest my father, but he's doing that anyway.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you this afternoon after the show.
Thank you, Steve.